tinfoil hat. Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
Good morning, Swarm, and welcome to Tinfoil Hat. You know I am. You know I'm here to do. I'm here too. Nice, brother. You're on fire. Joining me as always. And you know him is to love him. And just know he doesn't smoke the same. My good friend, Xavier Guerrero.
What's up?
And then on the ones and twos, he's back in the saddle. Jay Nice, Johnny Woodard. Cock. I have no clue what that came. Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why?
Why?
Just why? We just lost all of our young Christian warriors.
What's up, dude?
You're yelling out homoerotic stuff. Anyway,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Guys, we got a great podcast for you today. It was, let's just say, the thunder of the gods. It was a great
It
one.
really was, yeah.
It was a great
I
one,
think
dude.
I timed it, and we set the record today for the longest it's ever been. What would you say, XG, without what? Sam talking.
I would say he didn't talk more than 5-10 minutes on
Yeah,
this one.
yeah. But as far as the largest chunk of time we've ever gone without Sam having a word on
At
his
least
own,
30
on his own
minutes.
podcast.
Sounds like they're going to be sad.
At least 30 minutes.
Okay?
So if you... Yeah, if
Troy
McLaughlin.
McLaughlin.
If you enjoyed this, leave a review and let us know how
Leave
much
a review.
you liked
Let
it.
us know. Pieces of the puzzle come together, in my personal opinion. A lot of shit was explained. A lot of shit. There's a lot more going on in the world. And as he talks, you can go, hey, man, this is happening in real time. In real time, dude.
Ahorita.
So, guys, listen, man, the big 500 is less than a month away. And guess what? Only 50 tickets left. 50 tickets left. That's
Wow.
when we added the tickets. Now we're already through the originals. So the original numbers sold out.
So we're technically sold out.
Technically, we have 50 tickets left to the first show. To the first show. Second show, we got about 70 tickets left. And they both will sell out. And it will be murder. There will be a crush fest. And guess what? We've decided the 50th is also going to be, we're going to officially name the Mount Rushmore of
Yes.
Tinfoil Hat.
And there's a lot of extra room on there because one certain giant round head is no longer on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
Adios.
I'm also thinking about, as people come in, running the first episode.
Oh, that's cool. That's
on
a
a
good
big
idea.
screen?
Yeah, man, that's a great idea.
Hey, is there anybody out there that thinks they could edit together the best
Oh yeah, please
of Tinfoil Hats?
do it.
Do like a 5-minute montage? Or
You better put my historical moment in there.
What was your historical moment?
Remember when I called teachers fat last week? You were like, historical moment.
You've had a couple good ones.
That's what I'm saying. Get one of those in there.
Get some time when Xavier said something that made sense. Get it when he wasn't falling asleep. Can we get that episode? Yeah.
Dude, it was hot.
So much going on here, guys. So much going on. Guys, I got dates. I've got hoes. Now, I got dates, bro. I got dates this Friday. I don't know when Johnny will get this done, but this Friday I'm going to be in Pennsylvania at Soul Joel's with my good friend Howie Dewey. We're going to be doing a show there. Then the next night I'm back home at the Dojo of Comedy. Myself, Howie Dewey, and whoever stops in, we're going to rock it. Go grab those tickets at samtripoli.com. And I haven't put them up yet, but I finally got a ticket link. Miami, I'm coming. The 21st through the 23rd, I'm in Miami right after the Big 500 which is October 16th. So come get. No, that's 2 days after. Sorry, that's 2 weekends after. So it goes the 16th. I got a week off. Then after that, the 21st through the 23rd, I believe. Let me look at that. Come on, let me crunch some numbers here. Let me crunch some numbers. Okay.
It is definitely the 30th,
I'm back
the 29th
to back.
and 30th. You're going back to back?
No. I'm going the 15th, the 16th. I'm in Vegas for the 500th, and then the 21st through the 23rd, I am in Miami, and then I have the next week off, which is my birthday, which I'm not excited about this year. But all those tickets, you want to see me live? Go to samtripoli.com. Grab your tickets there. Guys, the show, I'm hustling, I'm working, we're slinging all that content, Dick, for you, okay? All over the place. Premium content, all in one place. Rockfin.com, rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com. All there, okay? Everything you want. Tinfoil, we have my Tuesday. Woo!
Hey, you just released one
Okay.
right now. I'm looking at it. It was on the top page.
Yep, I
First
did
page.
that. And then I have with the Daily Dose, which is now getting changed. The official name is Only Conspiracies are going to be there. Then I have Zero. Then I have Zero. I have, who else do I have? Oh, I have me and Brian Callen, Conspiracy Social Club. I have Broken Simulation, the greatest of all time. We Don't Smoke the Same. All that in 1 week. You can get literally like 10, 12 hours of content, all for $10 a month. So that becomes like 40, 50 hours of content for only $10. Where do you get that? Where do you get that? You know you hate Netflix. You know you hate it. It's just low frequency bullshit. Everybody you love is on Rockfin. Go check it out. $10. Make it holla. Just go to samtripoli.com. Click any of the links. Join there. Join us. Love us. Okay? T-shirts are available. Tinfoil Hat T-shirts.com. That's all we need. Tinfoil Hat T-shirts.com. Guess what? Only Conspiracies flying off the shelf. What else we got? Taliban skydiving team that Johnny loves. Then guess what? You guys doubted me? You guys doubted me at Breakfast Chicken Steak on. Sold out. You'll never see it sold again.
Hey.
Ever. Gone.
He said limited, and it's limited.
It's gone, dude. You cannot get it again, ever again. Who knows what's going to happen?
I was trying to show him how, look, it's not even on the fucking website.
It's not on the website. You can't even get it. So when these shirts go up, they go quick. Grab them. Disobey all of them. So go check that out.
And don't forget, guys, hoodie season is coming by, and we got a bunch of hoodies. You can make any of these into a hoodie. Look at these. That OnlyFans would look good on a hoodie.
Oh, yeah. Get that hoodie, especially you ladies on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Guys, I have also other free shows that you might want to see. Okay? My good friend Xavier Guerrero, he's got one. It's called We Don't Smoke the Same. You can get exclusive content on Rockfin, but you also get the show for free. So go put in We Don't Smoke the Same. Johnny and I have a show called Broken Simulation. That is our comedy one where we get weird fast, bro.
I thought Johnny was the main one on there.
Oh, yeah, Johnny lets me on his show. Thank you, Johnny. And then finally, I have a couple ones. Conspiracy Social Club, that is for free. And I'm working on Zero. I don't know how to rip audio off. I don't know how to rip my videos off of Rockfin.
Oh, I can hook you up with
Yeah.
something real easy.
You know how to do it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've tried it. I don't know how to do it.
I have an app that you just hit a button and it pulls it.
Rips it?
Sauce. Yep. Easy.
Will you send me that
There are a
app?
couple, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And Cash Daddies, too. That shit was
Oh,
popping.
yeah, Cash Daddy's on fire, everybody.
Broken Sim is up to number 89 in the charts in Spain. So
In
there we go.
Spain?
In
Yeah.
España?
Feliz Navidad.
Yeah.
Feliz Navidad. I love it. It's one of the best shows out there. We talk mad shit on these unsuspecting fools. All that more. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, one more thing. And if we're not in your town and you want to see Sam Tripoli's special, go to samtripoli.com for No Lives Matter.
No Lives Matter. Love it, live it, learn it. Please, if you love my show, you love this show, go check out my comedy. Leave a nice comment. Okay? Anything else, guys?
Rockin', let's go.
Let's rock. Guys, great. I'm telling you, you're going to love this episode, man. It's one of the best we've done. Really making a run for that Mount Rushmore.
Go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge.
All right, let's get into it. Very excited to have this topic today. Can't talk about this enough. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Very excited today he's joining us. Please welcome Saturn death cult researcher Troy McLaughlin. How are you, brother?
Great. Thanks very much for having me.
So I appreciate you coming on and talk about. This is a weird thing to say, but one of my favorite topics to talk about. You know, I know we're talking about Saturn death cults, but I just for me, when I started learning about this subject and these groups, it really, like, a lot of pieces of the puzzle come together. And when you have discussions, you always have, you know, oh, this group runs everything, that group runs everything, this group runs everything. But I always find that when you really study whatever group you're talking about, right, you start to see symbols that kind of like are hiding in plain sight, right? And you're like, and it always leads back to like Saturn worship for me. So for our listeners who may not be familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Troy McLaughlin. I was born in South Africa, brought up in New Zealand. I've spent many years in Southeast Asia as an adult. I'm now living in the UK. I developed an interest in what's called Saturn theory when I was at university, where I studied Egyptology, and ultimately American and Chinese politics was what my major ended up being. It was while I was at university, I stumbled across the writings of a guy called Immanuel Velikovsky, who caused quite a stir back in the 1950s with his book Worlds in Collision, in which he suggested that the solar system as we know it was very different to the ancients in terms of what they saw in the skies. He caused an absolute furore in the scientific community, became, you know, the classic sort of 20th century scientific heretic. And people who've taken up his lead have gone on to sort of develop what would be called the electric universe model and its subset called Saturn theory. And Saturn theory is the idea that the planet Saturn, with two significant terrestrial satellites, one Mars, one Earth, was captured by the solar system within the time span of human existence on Earth. And that capturing event, which caused a tremendous amount of interplanetary upheaval, is basically what's at the what's behind most of the mythological record, as opposed to the anthropomorphic, sort of interpretations that are bandied about, that mythology is some kind of fantastical psychodrama done by people with a very primitive mindset. Saturn theory postulates that mythology is actually a key to understanding what the skies looked like for the ancients, and that world really didn't settle down to the current configuration of planets we see today until probably as early as 3,000 years ago, and so on. So, yeah, I've followed that sort of line of cosmological thinking. It's a new form of cosmology, very radical. It's based on the electric universe principles that postulate that the universe is governed by electromagnetic principles more so than it is governed by just simply gravitational physics based on mass alone. And as a result of that, that particular model, it's very easy in terms of the people who study this, to draw a comparison to what mythology told us was happening thousands of years ago, and what that model predicts can happen in terms of interplanetary cataclysms.
Guys, I want to talk to you about our good friends and long-running sponsors of Tinfoil Hat, Blue Chew. That's right. It's fall. Fall is here, and that means you're going to be inside, and that means bonerific. That's right. There's going to be a lot of time for a lot of boners, and you're going to need help with that, guys. And that's where Blue Chew comes in, right? Blue Chew, man, I love Blue Chew. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in a chewable tablet, and it's at a fraction of the cost, right? I love it. I love Blue Chew. I take it and I look the girl in the eye, go, prepare for war. That's what I do with my lady. And let's say you're like Xavier, you go both ways. Sometimes you look the guy in the eye and go, it's on like Szechuan. We don't judge here.
I don't I don't go on the road unless I take a Blue Chew with me. You can fly with it. I mean, it's always with me.
You can fly with Blue Chew. How great is that? You can fly with Blue Chew, okay? The process is very simple to get Blue Chew. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of our licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online, man. All online. So no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacies. You ever wait in line with a chick? She's like, what you're here for? You're like, oh, dude, I need boner pills. Not anymore, bro. Not anymore. Right? You can walk your dog, wave to your neighbor with the big tits, and be like, tomorrow's the day Action Jackson happens, all because of our good friends at Blue Chew. It's really simple, dude. I love Blue Chew. You all love Blue Chew. So here's what we need you to do. We got a special deal for our listeners for the swarm. Okay. Try Blue Chew free when you use the promo code tinfoil at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's it. What do you get for $5? Okay. BlueChew.com, promo code tinfoil to receive your important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. That's right. Let's go to BlueChew.com, promo code tinfoil to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details. Man, there's a lot to unpack there, huh? Man, you just dropped the hammer of the gods on us.
What an intro. What an intro.
What an intro. That's a hello. You don't even do foreplay, bro. You just come right for that action, huh? Damn, dude. We don't even have time. So there's so much. I mean, just know, out of the three of us, one of us writes at an adult level, okay? The rest of us are a little slower, so I'll let you guess which ones. But I flunked first grade, so we have to really unpack everything you said right there. And I want to start with the theory of what, as you understand, is the electric universe theory.
Well, the electric universe model, it's, as I said, it rejects the gravity-only solution for celestial mechanics, which is the way basically physical bodies work off each other in the universe. And it proposes that electromagnetism is the primary force in operation throughout the visible universe. So magnetism is many magnitudes powerful, more powerful than gravity, and all magnetism is evident of past and present electrical activity. And on a planetary and galactic level, that is a seriously powerful force, much more powerful than celestial mechanics give us when they just only take into account mass and gravity. The way that one can understand the electric universe model is that if you think of space as a giant soup of variable and interacting electrical fields in which massive electrical currents are conducted through a substance called plasma, and this is a key to understand. Plasma in mainstream science, I should qualify this. In mainstream science, you've heard of things called black holes, dark matter, dark energy, these kinds of concepts. The reason that those exist in traditional scientific thinking is because when they looked at the observable universe, saw the stars, the planets that we can see with the naked eye and other optical implements, they had a heart attack and they realized that they were missing up to 95 and maybe up to 97% of the mass needed to explain how the universe operates, how it all sort of interacts with each other. So they started creating concepts of things that we couldn't see to explain this difference. Black holes and dark energy and dark matter were the sort of mathematical constructs that we used to explain why 95 to 97% of the physical universe was missing in terms of just a gravity-only model of how the universe works. Plasma, though, which is you've seen those very pretty sort of NASA pictures of space, all lots of colors and so on.
Yeah.
The ones where sort of they honestly they look like a Jackson Pollock painting.
I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, that's what you call false color images. So space doesn't actually look like that to the naked eye or anything optical. All they've done is they've assigned values to the energies that they're picking up in space. So, certain electromagnetic energy goes to red, some goes to green, some to yellow, and so on. Then you get this sort of abstract, vision of the universe being multicolored. Most of what you're seeing in those false color images is plasma. Plasma is this fourth state of matter, and it's highly conductive of electricity. And it's that plasma which, funny enough, makes up about 97% of the observable universe, that the electric universe says is conducting all the forces required to understand how galaxies, planetary solar systems, and basically any celestial bodies interact with each other. So, as I said, think of space as a giant soup of variable and interacting, Sorry?
Yes, I'm totally getting what you're saying. So for those who are at the back of the short bus, okay?
When English is your second language.
So what you're basically saying is that there's this belief that like space isn't empty, but more of it is of plasma, almost what, I've heard other people talk about, more like liquid, right? Is that what we're kind of getting at?
Yeah, plasma, is part of sort of is also something that describes blood. The concept and the first, what you would call the electrical scientists, the electric universe observers, and so on, use plasma from the blood because that's how they saw plasma behaving. It really, the mainstream science will tell you that it's simply ionized gases. All right, and that these gases hold no gravitational pull or anything like that. They're not dense enough to keep planets in orbit and so on. But plasma, being ionized gas, is conductive of some sort of a force. And what I should let your viewers understand about plasma is it comes in three modes. It comes in dark mode, it comes in glow mode, and it comes in arc mode. Dark mode is by far the majority of what plasma does. You don't actually see it with the naked eye. You've got to use scientific instruments to juice up the electrical current that's running through it, or the ionized aspects of the gas to be able to see it. Glow mode, the classic example of plasma in glow mode is your northern lights, the sort of the lights that you see above the Arctic Circle. And also below under the Antarctic region, they've got the same effect. The glow mode shows that you've got an uptick in electrical energy taking place. Mainstream science says this is simply the ionized atoms of gas being excited by extra electrical activity and so on. But we call that glow mode in the electric universe. The arc mode is, and this becomes very important to understand what mythology is all about, arc mode, where you have seen it in the everyday world, is straightforward lightning strikes, fork lightning, sheet lightning, that kind of stuff. It's basically lightning. In the electric universe, this can take place at almost galactic levels, which is pretty huge. Certainly at solar system levels, and certainly when two celestial bodies, two planets, a planet and a star, when they meet in such a situation where their electric fields interact, that can cause a short-circuiting static effect, and you can go into arc mode electrical activity with the plasma that's interacting there. And, to cut to the chase in terms of how it reflects in mythology, in ancient mythology, for instance, the god Zeus, Jupiter, as other people know it, was known as, the god of the thunderbolt. The thunderbolt being that lightning strike. It's where in a lot of religion we get that whole thing. If you do something bad, God's going to strike you dead with with an electric lightning strike. It all comes from the idea that in mythology, people witness planets interacting in such a way where arc mode, very destructive arc mode, was taking place, these flashes of lightning between planets as the celestial bodies were stabilizing themselves or what's the word? It's where their electrical fields were rebalancing towards each other, you get this electric activity. It's no different on a cold, dry day when you shuffle across the carpet towards a radiator or your kitchen tap. You touch it, you get that electric shock, that static electric shock. You're just rebalancing. You're rebalancing your electric field with the metal object that you've just touched. In the electric universe, this can be scaled up to planetary interactions, and this is the connection to mythology. Where do we read of this kind of activity taking place at planetary levels is in mythology. And the electric universe provides a very succinct model for explaining what the ancients actually saw in terms of what was happening in our solar system. For the majority of the time before the 3,000 years ago, from about 12,000 years ago to 3,000 years ago, this was a highly active period of time in the Earth's history.
Okay, man, that is
Damn.
a lot. So, Johnny, so basically, space is a soup, and plasma. Are the planets plasma, or are they like solid, like we think of them?
Okay, so plasma, they're either gas. So what I said was plasma is the fourth state of material in the universe. So you've got solids, you've got liquids, and you've got gases. So a brown dwarf is mostly a gaseous, sort of substellar body. Jupiter, for instance, is a gas planet. We're a terrestrial planet, planet Earth, and so on. So if you understand that when a body either made of solid, gas, or liquid travels through deep space, it has its own electrical field, and that electrical field is conducted by plasma. And the plasma envelops those bodies and basically creates bubbles. Electric fields are essentially bubbles. Magnetospheres is what astrophysicists refer to, the big bubble that protects us here on the planet from cosmic radiation and solar flares, that sort of thing, plus our atmosphere, but mainly the magnetosphere. So every body in space, every celestial solid body, liquid body, or gaseous body has a kind of an electric field, and that electric field is governed by the greater electric fields that it travels in. So in terms of electricity, the smaller body with the smaller electric field is negative to a larger body that has a larger electric field. So imagine a brown dwarf approaching the electric field of the sun. The sun will have a much more positive, more powerful electric field than the brown dwarf. The brown dwarf will be coming through space with its own bubble of plasma. We call it in the electric universe model. That's called a Langmuir sheath, which is also called that in mainstream science. Irving Langmuir discovered that basically physical bodies develop these shield-like bubbles when they have an electrical field and when they travel through other electric fields. And as that smaller brown dwarf approaches the sun's electric field, its own electric field will interact with the sun, and a short circuiting will take place as the and I've just remembered the word, as the electric field of the brown dwarf seeks to equalize with the sun's electric field. And that will manifest itself in some pretty dramatic arc activity, arc being lightning flashes, that sort of thing. In other words, the brown dwarf, you would expect it would probably electrically overload and go into a nova type situation where it flashes forth, it expends a lot of energy as it seeks to equalize with the sun. The sun will also experience distortions, but its size makes it the dominant partner in that interaction.
It can absorb it. Is that what we're thinking?
Yes, and this is at the crux of what is called Saturn theory. Saturn theory basically proposes that our solar system was not created by an accretion disk that basically joined together in various planets, and all the planets were formed where you see them today. The electric universe model is more about the idea of captured planets or captured bodies that become planets of a particular star. So the solar system that we see today, according to the electric universe, is a collection of captured celestial bodies, planets, and sub-brown dwarf stars that become gas planets, particularly Saturn. And that, I think, the most radical aspect about that, of course, is that we're proposing that this process of capture took place within human memory, the corporate human memory, and was witnessed and actually recorded in the form of mythology. So, in fact, it probably happened as recently as 12,000 years ago, and only settled down as little time ago as 3,000 years ago.
Hey, everybody, I want to tell you about our friends at Lucy Nicotine, okay? Lucy Nicotine is a company founded by Caltech scientists and former smokers looking for a better and cleaner nicotine alternative, okay? Finally, tobacco has an alternative that doesn't suck. All right. Research and developed for 3 years to be made for people, not patients. Lucy has created nicotine gum with 4 milligrams of nicotine and comes in these 3 flavors: wintergreen, cinnamon, and pomegranate. Holla at your boy. Okay. Lucy has lozenges, okay, with 4 milligrams of nicotine that include the following flavors: cherry, ice, citrus, and mint. They went hard in the paint on that. Okay. And it's convenient and discreet. Products can be enjoyed anywhere, on a flight, at work, at the gym, on the go. It doesn't matter, okay? So it's 2021. Get rid of your cigarettes, unplug your vape, throw out your dip, okay? And get some Lucy nicotine gum or lozenges, okay? This is the real deal. A subscription to Lucy comes directly to your door each month. It's so simple, and you don't have to leave your house because Lucy has delivery down. Okay, Lucy lozenges and gum. Okay, also have FSA and HSA eligible, so you'll be able to spend pre-tax dollars on them. Okay, this is for the TFH swarm. Okay, go to lucy.co, okay, LUCY.co, and use the promo code tinfoil to get 20% off all products on your first order, including gum or lozenges. Okay, this is lucy.co. Use the promo code tinfoil at checkout. Okay, I also have to give this disclaimer: warning, these products contain nicotine derived from tobacco. Nicotine is addictive chemical. Okay, lucy.co, and be sure to use the promo code tinfoil. There is, we've had a lot of shows where we've discussed the rewriting of history, what it means, what they let us know. So I could definitely see this starting to happen in there. So before we move on to the death cult, final question is what is the difference between a gas planet and a terrestrial planet? Can a gas planet become a terrestrial planet?
The core of a gas planet is sort of molten liquid iron, metals of that type, but mainly speaking, a gas planet is basically it's a very dense cloud of material that circles around a core. So I guess I should take you back to what we proposed, that basically a short summary of how Saturn went from being what's called a brown dwarf star to a gas planet that we have in the solar system. And basically what we're proposing is that a brown dwarf star is like any other star in the electric universe model. It's an electrostatic phenomenon that is caused by what's called a Z pinch in the currents, the electrical currents that plasma is conducting throughout the universe. So a Z pinch will pull in elements into a core, and then will pull in gases that are around, and it will form into something that starts to glow in a very dull light spectrum, usually in the infrared to ultraviolet light spectrums. It won't glow like a main sequence star, which is a seriously strong Z-pinch effect in the electric universe model. All stars, if you can imagine stars being like Christmas lights on a Christmas tree, they're all connected by these cables, and they glow because of the resistance that each bulb sort of gives to the current that's passing through those wires. Well, that's what we're proposing. Basically galaxies are. They're basically strings of plasma connections where you get points of starlight where these Z pinches take place. Brown dwarf star doesn't quite get that glow. It's a lot less than the main sequence star, and it attracts a lot of gas particles into it. If it overloads, some of its more solid core can fracture off and eject bodies, which can become satellites, planets, or moons, as you would call them at that point in time. And so basically, that's how we believe a brown dwarf star forms, and it's mostly gas. The other important element into it is that brown dwarfs are copious carriers of water. Water being one of the most phenomenal substances in the universe. It's the only substance we know that both expands when heated and cooled. No other substance does that. Everything contracts when it's cooled and expands when it's heated. Water actually expands when it's cooled as well as heated. But water becomes part of the gas, the vapor that surrounds a brown dwarf star. And in the electric universe model, some of the sort of leading proponents of this, this is probably the most exciting thing about brown dwarf stars, is because of that big plasma bubble that they create around themselves when they're formed in the plasma Z-pinch effect. Because of this giant galactic electric field creating that plasma bubble around them, the Langmuir sheath, the inside of that plasma bubble with the warm glow of the brown dwarf star becomes a very, very conducive space for the establishment of life. Life as we know it. You've got water, you've got heat, you've got the right type of light for plant growth, all these sorts of things. So a lot of guys in the electric universe, would advise people who are looking for alien forms of life, go looking for the 7,000 plus brown dwarf stars between us and the next main sequence star. Try and look into those using infrared, radio, astronomy, and so on. It's the most likely place you're going to find alien life. And what we're proposing is that brown dwarf star, a brown dwarf star, had two planets, two terrestrial bodies. They had fractured off its core, Earth and Mars. They developed over a period of time that we call the purple dawn of creation, simply because that was the light inside, that if anybody existed on those two terrestrial planets, that's all you would see is this purple light from the infrared and the ultraviolet blue spectrum of the brown dwarf. And that was cocooned inside the plasma bubble. And when that plasma bubble was captured by the sun, everything equalized for that brown dwarf star, started off a sequence of events during the capture that effectively reduced the brown dwarf star to a gas planet. And that gas planet shone like a star in the northern celestial north of the Earth for a considerable period of time at the beginning of human experience. But was eventually dislodged by the power of the sun and now exists merely as a gas giant planet on the outer edges of the solar system. But this is the crucial aspect, that the ancients gave Saturn, this little speck of light out on the outer rims of the solar system. They gave it such a prominent place in the mythological record that it's all beggars belief that they refer to as their first and best sun, that it shone like a sun, that it was, worshipped like a sun, and so on. And this is This is largely the problem that most people have in grasping the concept of Saturn theory, and that is that sun worship in the ancient world is what has often been confused with Saturn worship. People think the Egyptians worship the sun that we see today, but in fact, most of the Egyptian mythology and other mythologies point to the celestial north as to where the sun was, and that it stood there basically, in a stationary position. I like to read Eduardo Cardona's statement, one of the researchers that I follow, about Saturn. Basically, I'll quote him as this: "The evidence of myth which points to Saturn having once occupied a position above Earth's north polar regions is vulnerous. There is not a race on Earth that has not preserved at least one account which states as much. According to this evidence, Saturn occupied a central position in the north celestial regions. It rotated and rotated widely, but other than that, it was immovable." Now that condition, end of quote, that condition lasted for a number of thousands of years before Saturn was eventually dislodged and placed where it is today.
Whoa.
For people who believe that
crazy.
For people who believe that that these skies have always been the same, the uniformitarian dogma that mainstream science is based on, this, of course, when you read this knowledge in the mythological record, it causes all kinds of heart attacks, because the ancients are basically saying, don't look at the sun that rises from the east to sets in the west. Look at that thing that is up in the celestial north. That was the big boy of celestial bodies that they were worshipping. Well, when we look into the celestial north, all we see is a little wee pole star and nothing much happening up there. And so 150 years ago, academia, in concert with the uniformitarian sciences of geology and the Darwinist approach and so on, they conspired, well, not conspired, they contrived, is probably a better word. They contrived to make everything that referred to Saturn in ancient mythology in its various forms, the Egyptian versions, the Aztec versions, everything like that, had to conform to sun worship. And yet this
There
was
we
at
go.
odds. Yeah,
There we go.
It was
I got to cut
totally
you off
at
for
odds.
2 seconds because you're crushing it. You're killing it right now. It's awesome. So much. Okay, man, we're going to have you back on another show to talk Electric Universe, because you just blew my mind. And because the last stuff starts to click when you think about that. But man, you really dropped another hammer when you get into that sun worship is the worship of Saturn. Because that, all of a sudden, that piece just connects so much for me in my belief of that. Again, behind all these quote unquote groups that run everything, there is symbolism that leads to Saturn. And when we talk about Christianity, we talk about the group that put the book together, which is the Bible, and how they were how they were sun worshipers. But when you take a look and you go, it wasn't the sun as we know it, but it's actually the sun Saturn, that even makes even more sense to me, because that leads us to who does Rome worship? Who does the Vatican worship? When you take a look at all these people, when you get into Jeffrey Epstein, how much occult symbolism is in what he does, and we hear he's part of the mega group, which isn't like Donald Trump, okay, but it is in a weird way because Donald Trump's a Jesuit. Jesuit leads to what? Jesuit leads to Rome, which leads to Saturn worshiping all over again, right? Yeah. So all this starts to click together when you think about what you're saying right now.
Yeah, well, if you'd been back in Roman days and said, "So are you a Roman?" they wouldn't know what you were talking about. If you'd said, "Are you a child of Saturn?" they would know what you were talking about. Romans referred to themselves as, Saturnalia being their biggest feast that became Christmas. They didn't really have a concept of Rome in the sense that we, have bestowed on them through our movies and our history books since then. I think, going back to this problem of modern academia, and particularly the sciences, basically second guessing what the ancients actually told us to be able to fit into the skies that we see today, because it just becomes impossible for them to conceive why would the planet Saturn have been worshipped as something in the north, a giant sun in its own right, when it's only just been a speck, this pinprick of light, out in the solar system. And as a result of that, the problems that you get from that is they've disassociated the names of the planets from the gods of mythology, when Plato and various authors are very clear that the planets were considered to be gods. That the association with Saturn, with the planet Saturn, is well and truly established, but modern science has to ignore these statements because they believe that the sky we see today has been as it is for at least 4 billion years, and certainly longer than the existence of humanity. And so, a lot of that is hidden from even the occultists, even the people who are involved in this stuff. Don't quite realize the significance of understanding a capture theory of how the planet, how the solar system formed, as opposed to the uniformitarian, gradual sort of way of planetary formation. And this is the reason I wrote Saturn Death Cult, was to hopefully get people on the process of understanding that mythology is a record of actual events, and as such, how can I put it? It demystifies those deep ingrained archetypes that respond to symbolism in negative ways. People will no longer be held captive to the subconscious, symbols that are used by people in a very exploitive way to gain control over people, and they start to understand, a different approach to mythology and basically the rotten foundation that religion, a lot of religion, and certainly the esoteric and occult groups are, have based their thinking on.
Let me ask you something, Troy. Are you saying right now that you believe the myths of the ancients aren't actually myths, but they're actually historical records of things that actually happened?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh
the vast majority
God,
of them,
dude.
they're interplanetary cataclysms recorded for posterity as a way of a warning. And you see...
Oh, hold on real quick. Let me just clarify.
What myths are we talking about?
Hold on. That's what I'm getting into. So let's say the story of... who's the god of time? Is
Cronus.
Saturn.
Cronus.
Well,
Cronus, right?
Cronus is the Greek Saturn.
So his son comes to kill him, right? That is the whole thing. His son is a Zeus. Zeus comes to kill Cronus. Is that literal, do you think, in your opinion?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
I'll qualify this as something that is absolutely astounding and the biggest lost opportunity that Saturn theory people ever had in making what in science they call a prediction, and that is that the ancients knew the planet Jupiter, which is named after Zeus. Zeus is Jupiter. They knew that the planet Jupiter had rings like Saturn. That's something that we didn't know. I think it was only about 30 years ago that we discovered that there were rings around Saturn, very like gossamer type rings. But somehow the ancients knew this. They also knew, that obviously that Saturn had rings. Now, we didn't discover Saturn's rings until the time of Galileo. Since the ancient sort of age. Yet, for some reason, the ancients were able to give very good descriptions of 4 main planets, Saturn, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, that defy, basically, if they defy being able to discover that if it's just the naked eye that you're watching these planets where they are today. So Jupiter having these rings, at some point after Saturn is captured by the sun and starts to fail as a sun in Earth's northern celestial regions, it comes into interaction with an existing gas giant, Jupiter, that was a native planet to the sun. And there is a catastrophic interaction between Jupiter and Saturn, and to the ancients, this is what dislodged Saturn from its position in the north, in the celestial north, was its interaction with Jupiter, and hence the legend of Zeus, the hidden child of Kronos, who is the Greek Saturn, coming back and displacing his father.
Okay,
also,
now I get what you're saying. So it wasn't literally a person like Kronos and literally Zeus, but it's the story of the planets that they gave them names of gods.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
gotcha.
yeah.
I almost
And they had
lost it
such
right there.
devastating effect on the Earth because of the proximity to the Earth that, in the ancient mind, the Earth was governed by what happened in the heavens. This was the empires and kingdoms rose and fell according to the comets, according to comets and planetary interactions. This is why ancient religion was so incredibly obsessed with watching how celestial bodies maneuvered in the skies. And when anything sort of was untoward, people literally freaked about the effect and prepared for what is another doomsday. And you see, I think what I write about is where my book is different from other Electric Universe people who write about Saturn and the capture of Saturn and its implications for mythology. So what I write about is an elite-driven, a worldwide occult culture that is based on a fraudulent understanding of the mythological record, the one we've been discussing. One that promotes an agenda that's focused on creating a new and exclusive golden age for a self-appointed elite. And it's an elite that's basically determined to rule humanity and see themselves as heirs to the ancient golden age that was presided over by the mythical creator god Saturn, which was established in the first golden age during the capture process when Saturn was first captured by the sun. Most of us know this golden age and the god of it as Saturn, but it goes by a multitude of different names, all with the same archetypal elements to it in virtually all other cultures. Unfortunately for most of us, however, this what I call a Saturn cult or culture in all its forms and permutations, it has evolved out of various ancient priesthoods and religions to come to promote a culture of total socioeconomic and political control.
Yes.
One that negatively exploits a number of deep-seated, all these psychological scars that are a residue of the great doomsday event when Saturn was dislodged from its position in the northern skies, and so on. So, these psychological scars throughout humanity, these are all, these are all directly linked back to actual catastrophic interplanetary events. Or that's what I believe it can be linked back to with when you look at mythology in its original form, and basically, it was witnessed by humanity that managed to survive this, and not in the too distant past. However, even though these massively, destructive interplanetary events have been largely forgotten and clouded over by the haze of the mythological record, you don't get a sense of this today when people talk about mythology at all. It's these deep psychological scars that were created by the doomsday event that dislodged Saturn that are still with us today, and it's these scars that are exploited through symbolism by people with malicious intent. And it's my belief that what has evolved in a very distorted way is the idea that there is a way back to another golden age, a kind of a mythical paradise that happened when Saturn first burst into light, when it first got captured by the sun before it was dislodged, that we will go into another golden age of a similar nature, except the difference being here is that we will enter it through a man-made doomsday event and enter into a man-made, technologically driven golden age that benefits an elite few. Who
are you talking transhumanism?
Transhumanism, I believe, is the absolute basis of this idea of a of an evolutionary step into a new golden age. Yes, it's technologically driven, but based on an occult misunderstanding of the original golden age. But it's basically their idea of how the Earth should be ruled by. Well, it's a machine-like transhumanist vision, of human existence. It eliminates need for procreation or interhuman contact and relationships. And the kind of things that most of us believe make us human, they are looking to change that through this new sort of technology-driven golden age. But they need a cataclysmic event to satisfy the ritual aspect that has been developed over the centuries to bring about this this new golden age, because they do believe in a force, some sort of universal force out there that can be manipulated through ritual and such to ensure that they're the ones who come out on top.
Now, do you believe in astrotheology? Isn't that what it is called? It's basically that most of our stories in the Bible are based on the constellations and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd have to qualify that. I don't believe in the astrological sort of sense or whatever. I believe that constellations and such have been utilized as much as the written word in preserving, records, and also, warnings to future generations about possibilities in the future and so on. And again, it's these things that have been largely distorted to create the modern concepts of the occult and so on. I mean, you mentioned Jeffrey Epstein, with all his temple stuff on his little island and so on. It's obvious to me that Epstein was a Thelema, a believer in Aleister Crowley's type of religion that borrowed heavily from Egyptian symbols. I don't believe Aleister Crowley knew what he was doing as such. He just borrowed to create a Sophic view, this Greek idea of do what thou will should be the whole of the law. People have run with that, particularly in in celebrity circles. Thelema seems to be the favored form of this, but it all has its origins in what I would call the silver priesthoods. These were groups of people who tried to preserve the great golden age period in the form of weights and measures and religious writings after the Doomsday event that took place, I believe, around about 6,000 years ago. And I think that's crucial to understand, that there was a period when humanity emerged from a dull primordial darkness, a purplish light, into a bright world where Saturn, what I believe to be the planet, burst forth. And as a result of that, the reason that this period when after Saturn burst forth, the let there be light moment in the sort of ancient records, if you take the biblical example, that was when humanity was able to actually grasp the concept of the measure of time. And it is the measurement of time, hence Kronos, the god of time, and Kronos also being Saturn. But it is the measurement of time that launches civilization, because prior to that, it's impossible to know how long you slept without an ability to calculate time, the passage of time. And, let alone meet up with people at certain landmarks and say, I'll see you here next Tuesday, or I'll see you next month, or whatever.
There became an order to everything.
Yes, and it's those weights and measures that the good Saturn, the good god Saturn, is associated with. The bad god Saturn is that it all comes asunder when he's pushed out of his position in the celestial north and things go awry, and you no longer have that comforting, almost paradise-like existence on the earth as a result of Saturn's demise. And a lot of the weights and measures get lost. And so you have the emergence of what I call priesthoods and what the esoteric traditions call the Silver Age, who are desperately trying to get back what those measures, those weights and measures, the basis of civilization would be. They become corrupted very quickly because with the demise of Saturn, we hit a situation on the Earth where suddenly the Earth is not producing its its bounty on a sort of a continuing basis, you suddenly have seasons, which introduces the idea of scarcity. And when you've got scarcity, there are people who want to monopolize scarcity, and they want to monopolize the work that goes into producing harvests. And a lot of these priesthoods ultimately become a vehicle for creating control mechanisms that allow a idle elite to benefit off the work and the product of the greater majority of people. And they couch that. They couch their authority in the idea that they are somehow inheritors of the knowledge of Saturn from a golden age. And that's where it all starts to really go bad. And in my book, the biggest thing that I want people to take away from it is that the emergence of central banking, the international debt slavery finance model that we have been laboring under in America since for 100 years, over 100 years now, but for quite really since the times of Rome, it's put its head up every now and then, but certainly in the last 100 years, worldwide, that is probably the greatest tool of population control that has ever been devised, and is also the one thing that is responsible for virtually all the wars, the famines, the pestilences that the Earth seems to periodically suffer, because it's based on this idea of of society operating on a debt that they can never actually repay. And somebody always loses, and that group of people who lose becomes larger and larger. And the people behind the system, many of them who don't really fully even understand, I believe, the full implications of mythology, when you look at it, they're actually all Saturn worshippers. They are not Satan worshippers, but Saturn worshippers. There's a big difference.
I've been saying this forever. Have I not been saying this?
Yep.
This is exactly what I've been talking about. There's so much going on here, man. I hate cutting you off because I got a million questions.
It's the least you've ever cut anyone off.
Yeah, by the way, ask these guys. I've been very quiet because I just want to hear what you have to say. So Saturn is in the sky. Through the electric universe, electrical forces knock it off its position, which causes it to go away. Is the sun that we have now always been there?
Yeah, the sun's, it's not always been there in our skies. The really ancient stuff, particularly if you look into Mesoamerican culture and so on, they talk about a non-existent sun, the sun that we see today, and then a distant sun, and finally a sun that sort of replaces the original sun. I give various quotes in the book from the Popol Vuh, the texts and so on, that show that the experience, particularly of some of the more ancient cultures on this planet, is one where they emerge from a sort of a purple twilight, permanent twilight, to this world where there's a great glowing sun in the celestial north that sits immobile up there. There's a couple of other bodies there that we identify as Mars and Venus. They glow in spectacular forms that produce, deutoplasma. These are I show in the book how these are the origins of many of the symbols: the 8-pointed star, the scarred warrior, all these sort of factors. The rings of Saturn and so on become observable at this time because of Saturn's capture. And to them, the most important place to look in the heavens is not where the sun is, but where the our solar disk now, but to the celestial north. And for centuries it seems that's where they basically identified the origin of life as such, or certainly the origin of the way the planet is. After this purple twilight sort of dawn that they'd gone through. And, when that gets dislodged, that's the most catastrophic event in all cultures. That's the doomsday archetype. And that's what's in our subconscious today, which can be exploited by symbols, is this sort of return of this, almost humanity-ending doomsday event that took place at the end of the planet Saturn's reign in the celestial north.
This is amazing. So, I get into things like Khazarians and stuff like that, and how, that so much of this, what's going on in this world, are Khazarians who at the are when you go far enough back are Turkish, and this gets into what the Turks did to the Armenians and the formation of Israel and all these other, and then you get into, if we're talking about Saturn worship, which brings us to the Vatican, and that the Vatican owns a giant chunk of the territory of Israel. Nobody ever talks about that. Do you have any thoughts on Khazarians and stuff, or is that way out, not really part of what you talk about?
It's an area that I chose not to discuss too closely because it's such a highly controversial area.
Yeah, right.
It's definitely a part of the process. I also avoided talk about Masonry, the Masonic orders, this sort of thing as well. I just wanted to get as closely to the idea that much of symbolism, including your cube symbolism in Judaism, your black rock in Islam, the crescent and the star in Islam, all of these things, six-pointed stars, all this sort of symbolism is directly explainable in terms of the cosmology of Saturn theory as to where it came from. Once you know that, you're not held by some quasi religious authority to do what you're told by whichever group claims to have hidden knowledge about these things, these mystery schools and so on. It opens up what has actually happened in the planet, and it also, I believe, the main thing is to allow people to be able to identify when somebody is trying to exert control over you. Where they're coming from, what they're using as a control mechanism, to go against you. And yes, Khazarian Judaism. Arthur Koestler was absolutely correct when he talked about the 13th tribe. These sort of ideas, and the idea that Ashkenazi Judaism is about as Abrahamic as Toltec Mayan Indians or whatever along those lines. It's really just a religious connection rather than a racial connection that they have. But this just joins the overall cacophony of malicious and malignant influences that seek control mechanisms. And to be perfectly honest, the only thing that is good about all this sort of stuff is that there are so many conflicting internal disputes between people who would seek to control that quite a lot of the time they often end up imploding in a massive confusion under their own weight. And I think we're going through a process of that at this time.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So, because I want to get into what these death cults do, and you have some notes here. So, just for my own personal understanding. So through the electric universe, Saturn gets knocked out of the central point of our sky. This brings in this somewhat new sun, but this sun brings in seasons, and the seasons change the way we operate. It's no longer the golden era. Now we see winters and falls and all that stuff. It's a different energy at this point. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then this group that worship the Saturn in the sky as the sun that we know as Ra, but is actually Saturn worshiping, which is such a giant piece of the puzzle. They want to bring that back. Mm-hmm. In what sense are they doing that?
They want to bring it back in the sense of its authority. So I'm going to use sort of biblical references here so that people can get the sort of the gist of what I'm saying in terms of motivation. All right, motivation of what I call Saturn worshippers is more to do with what the Bible says happened after the fall of Adam and Eve, which is the sort of the creation myth of the the biblical account. So let there be light, an element of creation. Paradise is formed. Humans are created by the creative force, and then they sin and they are ejected from paradise. And the key phrase that I like to concentrate on is the idea that by the sweat of your brow will you make the earth yield its fruits. Now, that typifies what the golden age was, in the sense that you didn't have to sweat to make the earth yield its fruits. It just did it for you. It was permanent harvests. There was never any food scarcity. Now there was food scarcity, and people had to work and join together in order to produce what they needed to get through the winter periods and so on along those lines. Now, in any human society, in any group of humans, you're going to get people who don't want to sweat to make the earth yield its fruits. And they will look for mechanisms by which they can control other people to do all the sweating for them.
Okay, I get it now.
All right?
I understand.
Yeah. Okay, and so what they do is they hijack the idea that the golden age was a time of great it was a paradise for people to live at that time, but they hijack the idea in that they are the only ones who know the truth about it, and they exploit that mystery. All right, it's the old story of I've got a secret. If you join me in something, you can have that secret too.
Yes,
and so on. But I want you to do this.
Yes,
as such. All right, and because we have those deep-rooted psychological scars. The rituals and things like that ring true, and we start bestowing on these people a kind of an authority, and it becomes established. It becomes a form of kingship. Priest kings being the first type, and the most obvious today, of course, is the Pope. Of that model. The other way that you can make people do what you want them to do is you can just force them. You can be take the gangster approach and just say, if you don't do this, I'll kill you. But there's a point in time when there's too many people that you're trying to control that can rise up against you. And so you need a better mechanism to make lots and lots of people do what you want them to do. And that's where the concept of weights and measures, which is the true concept of paradise in the Saturnian age, where they established justified weights and measures that people could trust. These groups started creating weights and measures, became the authorities of how those weights and measures are dispersed and dealt with, but they start to corrupt those weights and measures for their own benefit, and that brings us down through the line to the modern banking system that we have today. It's the greatest distortion of the measure of work done, because that's what money is. It's a measure, and they've distorted that for their own ability by turning it into basically a debt and such. So yeah.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. So there's abundance. Everybody's working together, making stuff. Saturn gets knocked out. I'm just good this so people like me can understand. So Saturn gets knocked out of it. Suddenly there's seasons. The abundance changes because these people start to exert control on the mechanism of creating farming and food and all that stuff. They see it. They see an opportunity to seize control, so they create this system to corrupt it and then control it. A great example of what we're talking about right now is what's going on with crypto, right? So what are they saying right now? And crypto could be a new world order, right? It's possible. But there's a lot of people creating crypto left and right. People are making over. What's going on? These same people are like, we have to regulate crypto. We have to regulate. It's the only way we're going to save it, which then becomes control over crypto.
Well, I mean, you know, it gets crazy when China fucking bans it.
Yeah, that is great, but that's more control, right? And that, it's like this notion that it's only one group of people trying to do it. He said it's right. There's a lot of people trying to do it, and the blessings are they're all battling each other, that it ends up like blowing up in their face. But now I understand what you're saying. Do you guys understand it? I totally get this, man. I totally get this. and we get it through all. Man, this is an excellent episode. And so we have this group of people. They create this banking system that
because
allows.
what they want is they want monopoly and they want centralization. All right. So the big con job that most people don't understand is that when they talk about capitalism, there are two types of capitalism. One that operates off free enterprise, and the other one that operates off the idea of monopoly. And that particular form of capitalism, communism is the glove that fits their hand because communism is state monopoly. And corporate monopoly is, monopolistic capitalism. Yep. And effectively, it only works when you have a centralized body calling the shots and deciding what's right and what's wrong. And if I go back to the biblical concept of what the Silver Age priests collected, if you know the story of Adam and Eve treated like a mythology and so on, but there's a part that's often misunderstood when it comes to the moment of what people call original sin. And that is that the sin of Adam and Eve is just entirely linked to the idea that somehow by eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they knew the difference between right and wrong. That's actually not, in my opinion, what the Bible is actually saying there. They knew what was right and wrong before they ate of the tree. The key aspect there that is in what I would call the Melchizedekian priesthood of Silver Age, the first pure part of it all, is that the sin there is that Eve decides, often it's quoted as saying, when I ate the tree, I was told by the serpent, by the devil, some people believe along those lines, that I would be as a god. And they stop at that point thinking that Eve wanted to be like God. She qualifies that by saying, knowing right from wrong, okay? But you see, that makes it sound like as if she had stumbled on the idea, gee, I know what's right and I know what's wrong. What's actually implied by that is that being made in the image of God, meaning the intellectual capacity of God, this human being decided they had the capacity to go one step further and define what is right and wrong. And that power to define what is right and wrong is held primarily in the ability to define our weights and measures that form our laws. So Eve basically, instead of adhering to what the Bible would call divine revelation of God's eternal law, as such, Eve takes the route that the Saturn death cult culture is based on, which is I can aspire to be the person who decides what's right and wrong over and above God or as God, depending on how it is. And this is why the new Golden Age esoteric idea is fundamentally linked to that idea. That's the central idea that Eve's sin of being able to decide what's right and wrong like a god, that powers the thinking of the Saturn death cult culture that I talk about. Everything else they're involved in is simply the mechanism for achieving that objective. And their new golden age is is basically typified by the idea that they just get to decide what's right and wrong for everybody. We see that in the world today, going into acceleration. It's
100%. 100%. And then we get into like the royals and all these groups and, the connections between a lot of these religions and the royals and who so we see, and I talk about this all the time on the show, we see introductions of holy books into the three of the major religions, right? Even there's a couple people talk about Hinduism as well, but we see the Bible written by the people who worship Ra. Now we're talking about Saturn worship and what stories got in there, what stories did not get in there. Then we see that basically from people we've talked about on the show, a new Quran being written and how Muhammad is actually related to Queen Elizabeth. and then we got 2 books. We got the Torah, then suddenly we got the Talmud, okay? And this is now what they call a WikiLeaks, now a Wikipedia of religion where everybody can jump in and kind of give their say and what they believe. And there's some really dark shit in there. But I think there's purposely put dark shit in there to get us all to fight with it. It all starts to make sense right now. Now, when we take a look at what's going on in this world, a redefining of basic science, redefinition of basic understandings, the changing of how we believe we should raise our children, and all this stuff totally makes sense when you start thinking about what you just said about Adam and Eve and what is the original sin, and which is that man believes he can decide what is right and wrong. Now, when we take a look at religion, and what everybody always says is, the greatest trick the devil ever committed was to convince you he didn't exist, right? But then you start looking at all these other religions and all these other philosophies, and they'll be like, oh, that's the devil doing that and stuff like that. And then there's been so much rewriting of all this ancient scripture. How do we know what's real? How do we know what's not real?
Okay, I personally, to answer a question like that, it really just comes down to applying yourself to, what's available, open source in terms of the records, getting certain keys. When I wrote Saturn Death Cult, it wasn't an explanation. It was meant to be a guide and a direction for people to then follow themselves and see what they came up with, and hopefully lead into many of the things I think you've probably already encountered. Because the difference in my book to most Electric Universe-based books is that I blend in the socio-economic and the socio-political elements of human history into the being a consequence of what happened as a result of these interplanetary cataclysms. And, it's prediction, I guess, in the scientific method, the greatest form of knowing what is right and wrong is when you make what's called a scientific prediction. It's not prophecy or anything along those lines. And so what you need to see is what fulfills, as you observe events taking place, what fulfills certain theories, certain hypotheses. And so you can do that in the scientific way, you can do that in the political, socio way. And so really, you've got to do your research into the ancient records, which I believe were all a warning. Do that with the key that I hope people will take from my book, Saturn Death Cult, and then apply it to what you see in the news and the fake news and everything that else is coming out, and basically apply common sense. It's really the only way. None of us are ever going to know what's really going on behind the scenes in terms of that, and it becomes very frustrating. Believe you me, it's a very frustrating time to live in. But my own understanding at this point in time is that we're living through a change that takes place very few times in history, where society is going to radically change in terms of who controls us, who controls society itself. And I think it's going to change for the better, whereby there's a complete decentralization, and also in terms of that decentralization, a series of agreements between people, contracts between people that are based on accurate and weights and measures. In other words, we're no longer going to have fake money, because that's effectively what the Federal Reserve has put out and so on. We're going to have money in terms of contractual arrangements between individuals, and not controlled by a third party we call government or the central bank.
Damn.
Get your
crypto.
Get your crypto. Get your
gold.
I'm a big fan. Crypto's one of those elements that is shaking the foundations, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and they're trying to regulate, which is, I mean, it's just you see these ancient people trying to control something when they barely even understand emails.
What you also see is them, and I think we have to be real careful about this, creating their own currencies. And you really got to investigate who's behind them. You know what I mean? Because I
Right.
think you're seeing a lot of these new
I
ones
think that's
now.
what XRP is going to be.
So you're talking about like
I
a
think so.
like a Facebook coin,
Flashpoint. It's
a Facebook coin.
It's basically the banker's coin.
Just not as obvious as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, dude. I
mean-
totally
Avoid
agree.
anything that is centrally controlled. Is the key to that. I think one of what you mentioned before in terms of control. The Silver Age priesthoods knew the difference between two types of law. One type of law tells you what you can't do, and most people rebel against that. But the law that they seem to go for, which is the dangerous one, is the law that defines what you're allowed to do and only do. And a centralized form of control, whether it is through money or a judicial system or anything along those lines that controls from a central basis, is effectively giving you permission to only do certain things. Anything else is not open to you. You have to do what they allow you to do. And this is why this world that we live in at the moment is overrun by a thing I call bureaucratic licensing. Basically, you can't exist in this world without getting a license from a central authority to do so. The ancient silver priesthood concept is that the only permission you need to do something is the permission of the other person you're interacting with. You come to an agreement, which is a covenant, and if you both agree and you both operate off weights and measures that everybody can define and understand, it's really just between you and the other person. That's why crypto is so great. It allows us to operate between each other as individuals without a third party looking over our shoulder and telling us, no, you can't do that, or no, this is the only thing you're allowed to do. So to me, that is the basic difference. The original concept of law tells you what you can't do and opens up everything else that you're allowed to do, as long as you don't break the can't do laws. And man-made law tells you, no, this is the only thing you're allowed to ever do.
I love it, and you're totally right about the central banks. I mean, we're seeing this happen in real time. The U.S. government is using the central banks to, basically fund these actors that we call billionaires, and I think they're just theater actors. And I mean, we have Amazon. I mean, I'm trying to buy a hard or soft cover version of your book. I've been trying to buy as I'm listening. I can only get on Kindle. I can't.
Only on Kindle. Yeah, sorry.
Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, because the book is packed full of color illustrations, and if I were to offer a hardcover book of it, it would be in the $70 region. If it were to include the kind of color illustrations that I think are needed for people to understand the symbology of Saturn theory and how it relates to mythology.
I like owning physical stuff, but
I
I'm gonna get it.
I wish
dude.
I could do it.
I'm
and
gonna
I've been
get
waiting
it.
for them to bring
Maybe you
their
should do
prices down.
like comics do this now, where they'll press like 100, like
100 copies,
100 copies of vinyl of their thing, because some people want to buy vinyl. Put out a $70 book. If somebody wants to pay $70 for it, I would have bought it for $70.
I think that's what Bill Burr did. He just ran
I
out
would
of
buy it for
copies.
$70.
Yeah,
I just bought a $160 book because I don't think they want me to have it. So I bought it. Go, hey, yeah, man, I'm gonna read this book. So because I love having stuff, and I want to put it on my shelf when I have a shelf of books I've read and I plan on reading
Or haven't read.
Yeah.
A lot of people have asked me about that, and the closest I can, Amazon will the way I go through the publishing system that they have, it's about $70 is the absolute minimum that I can put that book out for as a in hard copy.
Let people buy it if they want to buy it. That's up to you. I think you could get people to buy it because I like having something physical to hold. I'm old school like that. But going back to Amazon, it is of my belief Amazon is the U.S. government. It is. We have fascism And fascism sounds like the death cult work, where it's not. I don't think we'll ever see in the United States a person running everything. The president has like a 1% of the power that presidents used to have back in the day. He's no longer that guy anymore. That a guy in Tucker Carlson,
same as kings and queens of England.
Yeah, they're all just figureheads. It's all theater. It's all theater. But Amazon, and to me, just like Facebook, are all extensions of the U.S. government, which are just ran by people who control corporations, and corporations are now the new fascism, corporatocracy, and we're seeing it happen right now. And they're controlling the means of business and living and everything that you're doing right now. Now they're trying to control your ability to raise your children. It's happening in real time. If this is true, what I just saw, and I have to do some research, Gavin Newsom just made it so 12-year-old girls can get abortions without talking to their parents.
Oh my God.
Death cult shit.
Moloch worship.
Yeah, Moloch worship. There you go, man.
But I mean, you didn't think Amazon was like controls the whole United States? Like the warehouses, the people work there for days and there's nowhere else to work. And if you quit, where else are you gonna go?
Yeah,
I think Amazon is the new company store. You used to have these companies that were so big that the people who worked in like the mines or on the railroad, they would get paid in company script, but they would get paid in company money, and they could only use it at the company store. And I think that's what Amazon has become. Our money is all just going to go to Amazon, and it's going to be the only choice.
We're at blame too. How nice does it feel when something shows up at your house the next day?
I agree. I'm trying to buy it on anything but Amazon.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck with that. Yeah.
No, it's not your fault, man. I just want to support you. I love getting these books. I love reading those books. I'll do it on Kindle, man. So what else did we get? Yeah, debt slavery is very important. I mean, I have credit cards. Is it kind of funny that if you cancel a credit card, your credit goes down? And if you don't own a house and you don't have a mortgage, you can't get up to that super elite.
Because that's what I think about the credit score here. Like the more you owe, the better your credit score is. In Mexico, it's the whole opposite. The less you owe, the more your credit is. Like if you don't have a car.
Johnny, is that true? I think that like if you pay off all your credit cards, you tend to have a higher credit score.
Yeah, but they want you to keep the cards though.
Yeah.
So that you have a balance. I mean, you have credit.
Yeah.
They just want the balance to be low.
Yeah, that to me is crazy. The more you technically owe, the more they're willing to let you roll. Like, oh, you owe this much? You want some more?
Yeah.
Like they want you to fuck up and not be able to owe, and then do the interest, which is like, dude, they want you to fail.
We're just living. So, what are your thoughts about what's going on right now? I don't know if you want to get into any of the COVID stuff, but like where this fits into what we're seeing right now. I mean, Australia right now came out that 7 people died of COVID. 6 of them were fully vaccinated. And you see what's going on over there.
Well, I have a down under background, and it's tragic what I'm seeing happen in New Zealand and Australia. I'd never conceived that they would be the leading contenders for, outright fascist corporatism and communist statism. But that's the way they are going. When I wrote Saturn Death Cult, its first draft, now getting on 10 years ago, the initial sort of idea there that I hinted at, and it's still there in the current edition and so on, is that there's this idea of history as ritual, and I explain in the book through various means that as part of this esoteric push to create a new golden age, they have to create a new doomsday event. And that doomsday event is effectively a population cull that will reduce the population to a much more manageable stage. So I've been arguing along, and I'm not the first, as many people, at various levels in what you would call alternative research, looking into the occult and the esoteric, have been aware that we've been marching towards what effectively is a giant culling ritual, a giant human sacrifice that would launch this new golden age of this transhumanist golden age, this rewilded Earth that an elite few can actually own. And so when I see what's going on in the world today, I see a kind of crazily accelerated, almost out of control speed wobbles type effects going on, where they're trying to catch up to launch this doomsday event. And what I'm picking up from people I listen to, stuff that I've researched and such, there seems to be what we're actually witnessing is a conflict between various people within the know of how they want to reestablish the Earth in what they call this Great Reset. There is a conflict between those who want to do it now and damn the consequences, and those who want to somehow organize to take the wealth that they have accumulated for themselves into the new reset that they're talking about. And that conflict seems to be actually the basis for why the whole thing is probably going to fail spectacularly. And they're all going to lose out, as far as I'm concerned. That's my own sort of thinking along those lines. But we've been arguing for an event. People, like myself, we've been arguing for an event, a worldwide culling event that would be launched. And it's not as if they haven't been telling us that they plan to do it. That's an aspect of the esoteric and the occult. Is quite often it's a distortion of a biblical law that says you must tell the enemy what you'll do to them if they don't desist from doing what you think is a threat. They see us in humanity as a threat in terms of our overpopulation, too many useless eaters. So they're effectively telling us, stop breeding or else we'll cull you. And this has been going. You can see this right back to the Georgia Guidestones and so on. Really, the eugenics movement is probably the beginning of all this. And in Saturn Death Cult, I discuss Thomas Malthus and his Malthusian ideas and such. And this is what they brought us to. What I would always let people know, though, is that the people who are running things behind the scenes for what I call the Saturn Death Cult culture, they are substandard. They are not your great-great-grandparents' villains from the past. The Rothschilds of today are not your Nathan or Anton Meyer
I'm with you on that,
Rothschilds,
dude. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. They just don't have the these were pretty formidable people, the original Rothschilds, they were of a class way above what we see today, posing as our elites. And I think that's part of the reason that we're seeing, it's become a machine that's too big. Too many agendas get pushed. They can't pull back from it and move laterally. They're totally confined by their linear thinking towards this idea of reverting the world back to some kind of paradise, wild paradise that they get to control.
You know what, man? I totally agree with you. It's so funny. It's like the elites keep wanting to make the elites, but all I know about the elites is that their kids are all retards. And sorry for using that word, but that's my opinion. And their kids are all idiots. And they can't run anything. So we've seen giant, families that are like these dynasties just fade away because their kids are so dumb that they can't.
Look at Biden Hunter.
Yeah, great example by Hunter Biden.
Yeah, whatever.
Biden Hunter. What are you,
That sounds like a new TV show. Right. We're going to track down all the Bidens and they're going to die. Biden Hunter this week on Discovery Channel.
But he's the worst.
Ran by Dog the Bounty Hunter. But yeah, I totally see everything you're saying, and I do agree with you. I also think that there are rules to this wherever we live. This realm, whatever this thing is we live on, it's very special. And there are rules to it. And you kind of brought it up, scarcity, abundance. And you can live in scarcity for a while, but it's not going to last forever. And people Klaus Schwab and all of his buddies, they're not bigger than the universe, in my humble opinion. They are just specks of dirt to the universe, and they can't change the laws of the universe, in my humble opinion. And yeah,
it comes down largely to defining what is actually Saturn worship and how does it differ from the major religions, and in terms of what it offers people who go down that route, that sun worshipping, Saturn worshipping route. The book Game of Saturn by Peter Mark Adams, very, very good book, where a guy who's a genuine scholar in this kind of stuff, he gave us the connecting evidence that actual Saturn worship has existed in elite families since the ancient times, where it's well established. We know that they engaged in human baby sacrifice, cannibalism, the whole works, in order to worship various permutations of Saturn, Moloch, Baalamon, all these different types of gods. But there was, how do we connect that kind of worship to the modern world? Well, in the near modern world, the Renaissance, Peter Mark Adams very succinctly demonstrates that a form of Moloch worship was illustrated in a tarot deck owned by the Este family, still a very powerful family in European elite circles. And this tarot deck was part of what he called attack magic that they engaged in against their rivals and so on, because the infighting amongst these people is profound. They just keep it within themselves most of the time, and it only really comes to our notice when we get taken into world wars and so on along those lines, and propagandized that way. But the infighting is very profound amongst them, and the Este family had this tarot deck that shows that they were engaged in Moloch worship. Now, how is that different from Satan worship? And I think this is a key factor in understanding the motivation of these people. And that is quite simply that the god Moloch and the Christian god, or the Judaic god, or even the Islamic god, differ in two different ways. The god Moloch, which is a version of Saturn, is a capricious god that can be influenced, all right, depending on how you go about it. The major religions have a god that is righteous. In other words, he puts out a bunch of laws, and then he creates a judgment at some point in time to define those who are good and who are bad. And so in the major Abrahamic religions, we have a thing called Judgment Day, but in Saturn worship, we have a thing called Doomsday. Now, Judgment Day is basically a major difference from Saturn in that you already have a bunch of laws in that tell you right from wrong. And, it's your job to spend your life according to how you believe things and so on, how you conduct yourself to present yourself on Judgment Day. Now, that's the basic idea of the Abrahamic religions. Saturn worship is very, very different. You have a god that is capricious, a god who can be very creative, creates the world, does wonderful things, and on a dime can turn and destroy it all. And the objective of these people in Saturn worship is to make sure that they influence that capricious god, that when he does move, he somehow makes exception for you if you're doing the right rituals, the right activities and such, and he makes sure that you don't get wiped out with the rest of the planet when that day comes. And all right, so ritual and sacrifice, all this sort of stuff is born into the idea of being influential. You want to, rather than being righteous and rather than seeking justice through law, you're seeking influence over the god. And certain families have been identified as having the most influence. So the best way to really get involved in all this, if you are of that kind of thinking and believe that there is this capricious cycle of events where every now and then the universe just wipes you out, the rituals are a form of belief in reincarnation, where if you do things right, you can reincarnate yourself into one of these families. If you're already part of that family, then you just reincarnate yourself back into the same family and so on.
God!
All right. And this is a very, very powerful motivation factor. For many years, people asked, why would people do this? Who could, who could get involved with a club, a group of people, which ultimately ends up in debauching some baby on an altar or whatever it is that that they do. Well, if you start to adhere to reincarnationist rather than resurrectionist concepts, so resurrection goes towards the judgment day idea, but reincarnation allows you to to manipulate the force of destruction in such a way that you come out on the right side of the overall destruction as one of the remaining elite. And it was originally, I always thought, used as a form of blackmail, and it can be used that way. It's you get people in, the rituals start with extreme sex acts, they move up to pedophilia, extreme pedophilia, murder, and so on, up the list depending on how far you want to go. And wonderful way of making sure that you stay within the club, because the vast majority of us, don't condone that kind of stuff, and would actually react if we found direct evidence of people doing it. So it becomes wonderful material of compromise to have over these kinds of people. But why would they do that? They would do it because they think that somehow they're going to reincarnate in another life into a better position where they're looked upon favorably by this universal force of creation and destruction.
Troy, you're saying that as though you doubt that that's actually what's going to happen. Am I right there? That you don't think they will reincarnate?
No, I'm not a reincarnationist. I'm a resurrectionist in terms of my own personal, what you might call religious beliefs. I follow what I like to call the Melchizedekian priesthood, thinking, sort of the original thinking behind Old Testament scripture. And so on. So my faith, if you can call it that, where people ask, and that is in the resurrectionist idea, and the idea that there is a universal righteousness out there that will, the way people like me call it, is a restitution of all things, a rebalancing, so to speak, where the universe is brought back into harmony with God. And as a result of the chaos that we've gone through, it teaches us the futility of basically deciding right and wrong based on your own whims and thinking, and the search for a greater authority for those rights and wrongs. So I would call myself a Christian in that sense. I don't belong to any major religion, any major Christian denomination and such. But for me, it's resurrection. If I was to go on the spiritual side of things, that is what I would hope for. Reincarnation, I don't see how that happens, and I just find it tragic that it has resulted in some of the worst rituals that you can possibly conceive. So some of the worst examples of victims have been created by people who have sought reincarnation to better their reincarnation. So yeah, I don't go along those lines.
This feels like a Westworld. You know how you can go into Westworld and do actions and act like they're not part of your life, and you can come out and you can kill someone, and then you act like you didn't kill no one because it's not part of your life. That's how it just sounds. Like they can do things knowing that, it's not really real. I can reincarnate.
They can.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you, but I also think there's a little bit of sigil magic going on, sigil magic, whatever it's called, where they're like Q and all that stuff. That was all being told that, hey, this is what we're doing. When nothing gets done, it's your fault, not ours. And there is something to that, man. We all waited for, Trump to save us and all that stuff when that was never part of the plan. It's very interesting stuff. You answered a lot of questions for me, and man, you were wonderful. You were really wonderful.
What you just said takes you back to symbols, doesn't it? The power of symbols.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. It's so much of this stuff. And like when you broke down that they want to be reincarnated into these families, just really resonated with me on why they do this. why
Yeah.
they act like this. Troy, you're a bad man, dude. Thank you so much, dude. One of the best shows we've done. I mean, and we've been killing it lately.
This was a long one. How long ago? Usually we're
90 minutes, 95 minutes.
damn.
Man, great. I mean, I could talk
killed
to you
it. Yeah, overtime
forever
killed it.
about this. I mean, this is probably my favorite subject.
You just
which-
bought a
because
book.
it's So I would like to buy the book. I'm going to get the Kindle of it, but I do think you should make a hardcover for those who want to spend the money to get it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at that idea, so I'll take your advice and explore it.
Well, Troy, I know I might have said a word that you didn't like, so my apologies about that, but I flunked first grade, so I pretty much am an idiot, so I own that word. Troy, where can they find you? Where can our listeners find you?
Well, I run a website, saturndeathcult.com, which is basically a website version of the book. The book is available on Kindle at Amazon. The Saturn Death Cult gives you a lot more material that's on the website. I also have a second book called it's kind of like a prequel. It's The Purple Dawn of Creation. It's a speculative look into how a spacefaring human race living on the moon of Ganymede might have viewed the arrival of the planet Saturn as it was being captured by the solar system, and what they may have actually seen on Earth before Saturn was captured. Again, speculative, but it introduces various concepts of what happened in the solar system before the arrival of Saturn. So that might be worth checking out for some people. So that's also available on Amazon.
This is an insane topic, man. I mean, I'm just looking over your website. I mean, can you go to SaturnDeathCult.com? There's a lot of stuff going on. Do you have any thoughts on Tataria?
Tataria? I don't know
Okay,
what
yeah,
it is.
you should look into Tataria. It's very, very interesting. Man, there's some very interesting stuff on your website, and there's some dark arts that goes on in the world. And now, you put together pieces to understand why they would do some of this stuff. So,
Yeah.
man, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. And Troy, man, anytime you want to come back, please let us know. You have an open door, and we would love to have you on. Guys, please.
Thank you very much.
No,
Ooh,
our
talks
pleasure.
about gods on there right off the beginning.
Yeah, man.
Guns, oil, drugs, sex.
Yep. Gun, oil. Yeah. Gun, oil, drug, slavery is what I think the real businesses are, and everything else is a layer to that they're willing to destroy to protect those. I mean,
And
like,
the love of money.
right? Well, and that is real money. That's trillions of dollars. A business that's $1 billion, that's great. Especially when you're just printing money. Was $1 billion? $1 million business, they'll wipe their.
I mean,
butt.
well, like the left, like, oh, leave the borders open. I'm like, if you like borders open, then you're okay with sex trafficking.
Well,
that's
no,
exactly
dude.
what happens when
That's
you leave the
about
borders open.
destabilization. Look what they did to Europe, man. They completely destabilized Europe by flooding in all these illegal. I mean, not illegals, but taking in everybody from the Middle East.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, dude. And it's like, I don't blame those people for coming because we're bombing the crap out of their country, out of their region. And I think it's not even about oil or terrorism. It's about ancient knowledge that's there that people don't want you to know about.
All the museums that they took down.
Yeah. All right, Troy. Thank you so much for coming on. And I hope the swarm finds you and shows you love because you were great. And I could talk to you forever. Definitely making a
Pleasure's all
run.
mine.
Thank you so much. You're definitely making a run for the
And
Mount Everest.
I got to say, guys like me need guys like you. No
Dude.
doubt about it. The work that you're doing.
I feel like you and I are going to be like in a Patrick Swayze movie where we're just holding each other, swinging it around in each other's eyes, because that's the kind of love you and I have for each other. All right? You're welcome
Go.
anytime. I hope our listeners shower you with love, brother. I think about making that book, and I will get your Kindle. And real quick, you had mentioned a guy who proved the Saturn worshiping stuff. You just mentioned it a little while ago. He basically had made proof. He
Peter Mark Adams, a book called The Saturn Game. He provides the link in Moloch worship between the ancient cultures and today's cultures, and so on. There's a direct connection there. That's what they're really about.
All right, brother. You, my friend, are a G. Thank you so much for coming on. I love you all very much. Couple tickets left to the 500. Will Troy be named on the Mount Everest of guests? He's in the running.
Or the Mount Rushmore, either
Or
one.
the Mount Rushmore, whichever one it is. Whichever one that is. Is he in the running? He is. Will he be named? Tune in. You got to go there live. Only about 50 tickets left to the first show. And
are we doing a swarmies there? Or is there going to be a swarmies?
You're telling me they're going to vote? The fans are voting for the
We're
Mount
all going to
Rushmore?
vote.
Is there going to be a swarmies? Are we having a swarmies?
There might be a swarmies live on stage.
Oh, wow. We got to get some trophies.
Yeah, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the show because I know I did. Take care.
We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind. Tinfoil hat.